This is
That's
your,
wine, not whiskey.
so the corporate.
Ask Gina.
Good morning. We are calling this meeting to order, the Salton Sea Authority. At this point in time, if you will please rise, and we will have Mr. Joe Shea start us in the Pledge of Allegiance.
And pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. At this point in time, we will have roll call, please.
President Dockstader,
Present.
Treasurer Kelly,
Here.
Director Morales,
Here.
ex officio Joe Shea,
Here.
we have a board.
Excellent. Thank you. Oh. Okay. Are there any changes to the agenda?
None that I'm aware.
Excellent. Do we have any public comments at this time?
Not at this time.
Thank you. Any board member comments at this time? Oh, I'm not going to jinx this by saying anything. Okay, moving on. If there are no board member comments, moving on to the consent calendar. Is there any discussion? Is there any public comment? And if there is none, can I have a motion to approve the consent calendar?
If there's no comment, I'll motion to approve.
Perfect.
Excellent. There's been a motion to approve the consent calendar by Director Morales and seconded by Director. It's because I think of supervisor. Yes, such a hard time with everybody's roles. All those, do we have to do roll call vote?
We do not.
Oh,
No.
excellent. All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, motion carries. Moving on to framework of assurance, continued discussion on possible board action. We will now hear a presentation, community-based science. Juliana, you're up. We're looking forward to your presentation. Thank you so much for coming.
Can you all hear me?
Yep.
Alrighty. Well, firstly, thank you all so much for having us. My name is Juliana Taboada. I'm the coordinator for the Environmental Justice Campaign at Alianza Coachella Valley.
Again, thank you for having us. My name is Diego Centeno. I'm a community scientist of the residents of North Shore. I'm also a PhD student at UCLA in the Civil and Environmental Engineering Department.
And today we both will be presenting our research findings and our community science program at the Salton Sea. Okay, so I wanted to briefly just give some context to the work that we do. Alianza Coachella Valley is a nonprofit organization that focuses on improving the socioeconomic conditions of the Salton Sea region. And we have multiple departments in our nonprofit, but where I work is within the Environmental Justice Campaign, specifically the Thriving Salton Seas communities. And we have identified 3 priority areas as a way for us to be able to work towards a thriving Salton Sea region. And those are thriving health, thriving environment, and thriving economy. Our community science program is in our thriving health priority area. And the way that we conduct our community science work or address the thriving health need is conducting community science to understand what's going on within the lake. So our community science program is called the Salton Sea Environmental Time Series. That's our logo and our website, saltonseascience.org. Our program began in 2020 and has continued until now. And essentially, it is an initiative that is led by community members and non-local scientists conducting water quality and air quality research at the Salton Sea. This is our team. What is really amazing about our team is it is a mixture of folks from the region. So we have community members, but also folks who are interested and passionate around Salton Sea issues. We work directly with Brown University, Loma Linda University, UCLA, and community members who are passionate around the Salton Sea. So what is community science and why do we conduct it? Well, community science is important because it centers community and community needs. Community science is a form of scientific research that is led, administered, and led by our community members in collaboration with the academic scientists. So our core is to tie lived experience that community members feel growing up within the Salton Sea region to the research that we are conducting. And our goal is to understand what is going on within the water quality and how it can be affecting the air quality. So how did we get here? Our work is led, like I mentioned, by community, but also by the ongoing questions, misconceptions, and concerns that community members, folks learning about the Salton Sea that they may have about the lake. Two of the common topics when you ask folks about the Salton Sea is its heydays in the 1950s and 60s when it was a large tourist attraction, but also the smell. It's oftentimes the most notable characteristic that folks, whenever I have conversations with people about it, that's what they bring up. And we felt that when it comes to air quality and a lot of the research that is going on around the Salton Sea, the smell is not often talked about, that there was a gap of information there. And so we thought that is something that is worth exploring and we should continue to learn what that is. I have a map here, and that is a smell mapping activity that we did last year with community members. We conducted a series of workshops around the Salton Sea region. We had folks from Mecca, Thermal, Nyland, Bombay Beach, Calipatria come into our workshop, and we discussed and talked about the smell and how do folks navigate their day-to-day lives with the smell. When is it most pungent? When is it not pungent? And these are the findings that we had. So the red is really bad. The blue is tolerable, but not preferred. And then the green is you don't notice the smell very much. And I wanted to share this because I feel that it's very evident to know that the smell is important and people do notice it. And it's something that's often talked about with the lake. And you can see that it goes all the way to the top to the very bottom of the map. So it extends just beyond the bounds of the Salton Sea Lake itself. So I also wanted to show some of the ways that we conduct this research. Our space is intergenerational. So we have a lot of our young folks integrated into this space, and we conduct field days. That's our boat, those are our launch sites and the practices that we do. And we also have community meetings, like I mentioned, our community workshops where we talk about the data that we have collected and the research that we do. So why is this important? And who are the community members that we serve? Well, I am a community member myself. I grew up in Mecca, but we find that this is important because whenever you talk to folks about the Salton Sea region and the concerns and the issues that do lie there, it is very evident that this is an environmental justice issue. And for a lot of the people within the communities, they're already vulnerable to socioeconomic and health issues that exist. And majority of the folks within the area are Latina and Indigenous descent. So this is something that is directly affecting our communities. And a lot of the folks within the region live 30% below the poverty line within the United States. I wanted to continue on, so I'll be briefly explaining the smell that Diego will be going into more depth about. But the smell that we've identified is hydrogen sulfide. And essentially, hydrogen sulfide is a toxic gas. You might be able to find it in like water wells or even your trash. It's most notable by its smell, the rotten egg smell, typically. And what's going on within the lake is that it is an excess of nutrients that are being introduced to the sea through agricultural runoff. That alongside the low oxygen levels within the lake and the algal blooms that are both being caused by those factors, it causes hydrogen sulfide to become more potent and more not aware, but very pungent for community members. This is our flyer that we've made. Another way that we display our community data is infographics. This was made by a community member, and it directly talks about the cycle within the Salton Sea. That's a QR code for our dashboard, our Salton Sea website, if you would like to look at it. So why do we focus on hydrogen sulfide? Why is it important? Well, Hydrogen sulfide is known to potentially have health hazards for community members. Some of the items listed here are respiratory irritation, eye irritation, damage, headaches, nervous system effects, and long-term health effects. For folks within our community, given that they are getting exposed to a chronic low level of hydrogen sulfide at the Salton Sea, this could be potentially hazardous for folks. So essentially, just to summarize my opening statements here, our work around the Salton Sea and our community science program is understanding and addressing the Salton Sea smell and to understand the air and water qualities that have association to that. And I'll pass it over to Diego.
Can everyone hear me? All right,
Yes.
cool. Thank you, Juliana, for that introduction of the people that live in this community, what the problem is. And now I'll talk about this paper that was recently published in GeoHealth in May of 2025. This is work that started when I was a research assistant at Brown University under Dr. Mara Freilich. It's also in collaboration with all the organizations here and all the authors that contributed to this work as listed here as well. So what did we do during this project? Well, we used data from air monitors, water sampling data, and satellites to observe how the hydrogen sulfide dynamics are changing in the Coachella and the Imperial Valleys. Here we have a figure that is showing the locations of where those air sensors are. CIMAS, California Irrigation Management Information System, gave us meteorological data for the northern end of the sea. Martinez, Torres Martinez, and the Indio sensors are monitored by South Coast Air Quality Monitoring District, and those give us H2S concentrations. The Alianza sensor is a sensor that we installed ourselves, as well as an NASA sensor. Those orange sites are Bureau of Land Reclamation sampling sites that give us water quality data. I do want to point out, though, that at the time of the study, we only used the data from the Alianza sensor, not the NASA sensor, just because that's when the study was conducted, and then we later installed the NASA sensor. So these sensors measure air quality. Currently, South Coast AQMD has 4 active sensors in the Coachella Valley that collect hydrogen sulfide. One was recently installed in North Shore in May of 2025. Now, these sensors monitor hydrogen sulfide, but they don't provide a forecast for the Eastern Coachella Valley communities. However, the Salton Sea Environmental Time Series group installed an air quality sensor in August of 2023, which is around the time when the study started, in order to address those Eastern Coachella Valley community concerns. And so those concerns, as Juliana mentioned, were often related to odor. And these sensors continue to monitor hydrogen sulfide and other air pollutants. I do also want to mention that this data is available and open to the public for viewing at saltonseascience.org. We'll also include that link later. So more data collection. Right, so we took samples as well, 4 times per year in about 8 locations, and we use these samples to measure water quality nutrients. We also use satellite imagery. The satellite took 1 image every day of the whole lake. However, we talked a lot about how community scientists and governments have taken water quality samples from a boat. Now, this is important. It's a great start to really begin to understand how water quality in turn is affecting air quality. However, we also need to capture continuous data, not just data a few times a year. And so in order to account for this, we place moorings, which a mooring, as the picture shows there, is a line of instruments from the surface of the water to the bottom of the lake. And this is various instruments that measure different things. And that way we can get a continuous source of data at a certain location. So what did we observe through this study? Well, we observed that hydrogen sulfide is being detected from the southeast at even low wind speeds. So we can see that because of the geography of the Coachella Valley, right, we have mountainous regions that surround a valley. We often have wind directions from the southeast and the southwest. So let's take, for example, that wind is coming from the southwest or the northwest. Sorry. Yes, northwest. And so now we switch over to when the wind is coming from the southeast. So what happens? We get a lot of hydrogen sulfide concentrations from that direction. And when did you know it? The Salton Sea is in that direction. It's important to note here that when this is detected, it's detected at magnitudes that are above the California Air Resource Board threshold, that threshold being 30 parts per billion. What that means is that within an hour, according to the California Air Resource Board, you cannot be exposed to more than 30 parts per billion of this toxic gas. However, we see here that concentrations are even reaching above 180 parts per billion, which is very toxic. And this happens at both of the sites, being the So Martinez and the Torres Martinez sites. So now that we know that hydrogen sulfide is coming from the Salton Sea, we can next look at when these events are most likely occurring. Here we have a yearly time series in the top. We have a monthly time series on the bottom left and a daily time series on the bottom right. Where on the y-axis, you'll have the total amount of hours that surpass the hourly exposure threshold that's established by the California Air Resource Board. Again, that threshold being 30 parts per billion. And on the x-axis, horizontal axis, we have the date time. So we can look at the yearly time series, and we see that we have limited data from the sensors, which dates back from 2013 to 2023. And with limited information, it's very hard to really make out any yearly patterns, right? You can't say whether this is increasing or decreasing. However, when you take a closer look at these things, when you go at a monthly time series and a daily time series, you'll see that for months, most of the time when these exceedances are occurring, or especially during the summertime months, and if you live around here, that's pretty noticeable. But especially at the Torres Martinez site, which is the site that is in closest proximity to the Salton Sea. Again, reinforcing this idea that hydrogen sulfide is being emitted by the Salton Sea and that there aren't any other culprits that might be emitting that, like agricultural activity might be emitting this, geothermal activity, power plants, but really everything's pointing towards the Salton Sea. Sorry. And then when we take a look at the daily time series, we can see that these frequencies are occurring during the earlier parts of the day, during the dawn. And that's worrisome because that's when agricultural workers start their day and they're outside and they're being exposed to this toxic hydrogen sulfide gas, as we've seen in very high magnitudes. So we've seen the hydrogen sulfide is coming from the Salton Sea. We're seeing when it's happening. And now we decided to compare the sensors. We decided to compare the Alianza sensor that is located directly above the water versus a Torres Martinez sensor that is more inland. And so what this plot is showing is the differences in hydrogen sulfide concentrations between that sensor and the South Coast APMD sensor. And so the color here, or these are being plotted as a function of wind direction on the horizontal axis and wind speed on the y-axis. So the larger the point, the higher the average hydrogen sulfide concentration, and the darker the point, the larger that difference is. And so that would be the case for times when either the Alianza sensor is picking up more H2S than the sensor located in Torres Martinez, or if the Torres Martinez sensor is picking up more H2S than the Alianza sensor. And this data spans from May 1st of 2024 through the 25th of July of 2024. And that's just because that was the latest data that we had available at the time of the writing of this paper. Right, so we'll see that there are general trends in this plot, right? And as I mentioned earlier, most of these are coming from the southeast and the northwest, again, due to the geography of the area. But you'll notice really quickly that a lot more points are red, darker, and more pronounced, larger. That means that there are more instances here where the Alianza sensor is picking up more H2S than the Torres Martinez sensor. And again, I will remind you that this might have to do with the placement of the sensors. The Alianza sensor is directly above the water, and it may be detecting directly at the source, while the hydrogen sulfide gas takes time to reach the Torres Martinez sensor. However, detection does not necessarily equal emission. We believe that a lot of H2S is being detected and emitted again from the Alianza sensor because of its placement. But Torres Martinez sensor may be missing out on a lot of potentially large concentrations, only picking up traces of the toxic gas. And this is a problem because this toxic hydrogen sulfide gas can still reach communities on its way to that sensor where it is eventually detected. So what does this all mean? Well, to summarize what these observations mean in a broader context, I'll make the first statement. Well, it is known that sulfur reduction in the sea leads to the production of hydrogen sulfide, and this is how we think that hydrogen sulfide is being produced here. Also, hydrogen sulfide is emitted at high levels from the Salton Sea, especially during the summertime, as we saw from those plots. We believe that wind direction plays more of an important role in the detection, again, not necessarily the emission of hydrogen sulfide than wind speed, since we're still observing hydrogen sulfide being emitted at even very low speeds of wind. And that a large part of the sea's emissions still remain unobserved, as we observed in that sensor comparison. Fifth statement, there are high levels of hydrogen sulfide potentially above shallow water, which suggests emissions from shallow regions, again, because the AQS sensor is located in a shallow region. And last thing, exposure to H2S, as we know, can cause headaches and nausea and other effects. However, the way people are being exposed here is a chronic low-level exposure. The effects of that are less known and it's something that should be studied. And I'll let Juliana talk some more.
Thank you. Alrighty, so continuing on, some of the research needs that we still have identified even through our work is having science-based strategies for more sensor placements around the lake to understand the magnitude and the spatial distribution of hydrogen sulfide, to develop and evaluate solutions to reduce the hydrogen sulfide emissions within the area. Nature-based solutions like wetlands, bioremediation, even changing land management might help this, as well as mitigating the impacts that hydrogen sulfide is having on community members. This can be home air filtration or community resilience infrastructure, really just highlighting the importance that community members will be suffering the impacts of this ongoing issue. And then the last item here is to evaluate the existing standards of hydrogen sulfide, which do vary on the jurisdiction, but just to evaluate if they're still appropriate given the current research that has been conducted. We also have some examples of wetlands that have been successful in the past. So there's the Chesapeake Bay Wetlands Restoration Project. Chesapeake Bay is an estuary in the United States, the largest one, I believe. And it also has high nutrient levels within the water, which are causing dead zones within the lake, but also issues for the community members that are surrounding it. The wetland projects that they have are meant to protect and care for the groundwater and the water quality within the bay, as well as something that I thought was really neat with this particular project was the wetlands that they have are very specific to the region. So they have tidal and inland wetlands, and they move with the climate as it changes. There's a picture there of the wetlands that they have.
Cool. So another example of remediation in other bodies of water. This is actually a project in thought. So at Lake Elsinore, there's a project called the Lake Elsinore Aeration and Mixing System. This is a inland lake located in Southern California. It's a freshwater lake that, as like the Salton Sea, is experiencing hydrogen sulfide outgassing. Their proposed plan there is that they want to oxygenate the bottom of the lake in order to increase dissolved oxygen concentrations, which is something that I believe is also feasible at the Salton Sea. The conditions there exhibit also very low dissolved oxygen concentrations, and those are conditions that could also lead to hydrogen sulfide. And so what this will do is this will prevent sulfate reduction, which is when bacteria eat away at something in order to produce hydrogen sulfide. And the way they do this is, right, they have like a jet delivery system at the bottom of the lake, and they have these zones where they do this specifically. But this is somewhere we can get started, somewhere we can start brainstorming.
And again, I just wanted to highlight the importance of having community members and community ingrained in a lot of the work that we're doing. I have pictures here of our website and the data blurbs that we've had. We have a community dashboard that displays our water and air quality data on saltonseascience.org. And you can pull the data, you can pull the hydrogen sulfide levels. It is actively collecting it right now. And we find that this is important because a lot of the research that needs to be conducted needs to be directly communicated to the community members so they can understand what they're breathing in, what they're living in, as well as having it in multiple languages. We have this in English and Spanish. And another image here is our data blurbs, which we shared out to our community members, which discussed the research that we collected, the data we collected in our past field day in November. And just to add a little bit more about intentional infrastructure, Alianza Coachella Valley is advocating for a Salton Sea Trail network. This would be a further extension of the CV link, which is already in construction. And the purpose of this is for a connection for the North Shore community to be able to walk to the North Shore Yacht and Beach Club as well as the Salton Sea State Recreational Area. The idea of this is for folks to have more access to mobility, be able to walk all across the valley from North Shore all the way to Palm Springs where the CV Link is. And this can also be in different forms of transportation, bikes, skating, multiple forms of recreation as well. But also we want to be able to have kind of a sense of heightened climate resiliency with this trail network using vegetation or dust suppression infrastructure to address the immediate needs that community members within the region have. These are some renderings that we have. That's the Salton Sea Beach where the yacht club where the trail would be with potential artwork there, as well as more of an outward picture of the trail where we have potential opportunity for community members to do entrepreneurship, so small business owning, selling, etc. Yeah. And just the last piece on the trail network. So this is what's really great about this project is there is already existing networks that are being built, as well as resilience centers that can also further help community members if they need resources or just places of refuge. As you can see, the CV Link is already there. That is the orange one. If we were to have the CV Link extension to the Mecca North Shore community, that would be in a huge lift for mobility for community members. And it will extend all the way to the yacht club, then to the Salton Sea recreational area and further down. So a trail network can really be a way to help and alleviate a lot of the infrastructure needs that community members have. And also we deserve access to recreational spaces, green spaces, and just great infrastructure. And yeah, alrighty. Well, thank you all so much. That is our presentation. Those are our contact information if you have any questions or anything. Yeah, thank you all so much for the opportunity to present.
Thank you much.
Thank
you very
you.
much, Julia and Diego. Don't go anywhere. Does
Okay.
anybody have any questions for them? I know I do too.
So I'll go last and then, or start in the last one, which was the CV Link Trail. Have you guys talked to CVAG about CV Link? Because I know I mentioned at one of our CVAG meetings that we are adamant towards Martinez in getting CV Link extended
Yeah.
through the Tribal Lantern to get over to North Shore. So I know I've been an advocate for that, but I think it'd be good at one of the CVAG meetings to also present that to
Yeah.
the Greater Coachella Valley.
Yeah, we have worked with CVAG before, and we have community, well, I know that we've worked with the county before and folks are very interested in continuing and pursuing this project, so.
Okay.
Yeah.
There is a Zoom later.
Yeah. Yeah, today
Yeah.
at 1.
Yep.
The other thing you mentioned on your presentation about the Indio air quality, you were using that station also to gather information.
Mhm.
At one of our CVAG meetings, we were told that the Indio sensor is not working. So you're probably not getting data from that because they said it's been off for a while.
Mhm.
Yeah, so this is,
To the mic.
okay.
Thank you.
Yeah, sorry about that.
No, that's okay.
Yeah, so to clear up on that, we did use data from the Indio sensor.
Mm.
We used data that was existing at the time. So this is a historical case study.
Okay.
So I actually have some slides, I think. A second.
You wanna echo it?
I can't wait to ride my bike.
While he's pulling that up, I can mention that I know that that Alianza has been working with Riverside County and the authority in pursuing those trail systems to
Okay.
find the resources to make that happen.
I don't want to do it in the summertime, but it'd be great fun to do in the wintertime.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly.
Sounds fun to me.
You know
Okay.
how to drive.
It's okay, it doesn't have to. Or, let's see.
I think you just drag it. Having some technical difficulties.
so it is,
Listen, it's fine. While you look at that, I do have one other question on one of the other slides when you were talking about the density of the smell. I noticed in Bombay Beach, residents that looked like they were right next to each other, it was red and green. So I don't know if when you guys were doing that assessment with residents, if you asked them their length of residency in the area, because you may have people that live there so long that they don't notice the smell.
Yeah.
So that's why they don't notice it, but new people to the area might
Yeah.
be something that they notice.
Yeah, that was something that we noticed, especially given where Bombay Beach is. It's so directly like in front of the lake. A lot of residents had noticed that they didn't really notice the smell, that it wasn't as pungent. And I don't know if it's like a built tolerance that maybe people have, but it's really interesting on the, like, I wish I had the closer up images, but some folks that were further out smelt it a little bit more, but the closer you went, some people didn't smell. So it really depended on the area, but yeah, that is something that we
And
noticed.
then did you notice how many were in Calapat? Because obviously that's what I noticed. And I thought, are they confusing that with the feedlot?
Yeah.
Because
Mm.
I can smell it when I'm
Mhm.
certain times when I'm by the sea, but I cannot smell it in Calapat. So I just thought that was interesting.
Yeah.
That was it for me.
Yeah, just to answer your other question really quickly about the Indio sensor. There's a legend up there on the bottom left plot where Indio is highlighted in orange, and then in the yearly time series, you can see where that data for the year spanned. So we didn't end up doing much further analysis with that site because, as you mentioned, it's very limited data. So I want to mention that.
Yeah, because I noticed 21, 22 in that era you have detection, but then after that it sort of veers off, and I think that's because that's when the air quality station stopped functioning.
Yeah.
That was one of my questions, in 20 to 21.
I don't know
That-
when
I mean,
it's
because why did it?
stopped. Yeah.
Yeah, so that was one of my questions. If you had a hypothesis why that was.
Well, I think because I know at a CVAG meeting we were told that the Indio station hasn't been working and they barely noticed it. So that
But do you
could
think it hasn't been working since 2020?
possibly.
Okay. And before you leave this slide, my other question was, I'm assuming on that bottom slide, the hour from that 0 to 23, are we doing military time? Is that 2 a.m. that it's the highest?
Yeah, you're correct. That's 2 a.m.
And what's your hypothesis there? Because of the way the wind is at 2 a.m., the temperature cooling?
Yeah, you're in the right direction. So our hypothesis is that this is upwelling, as you mentioned. Winds directions change, wind speed change, and so that's it. It's actually mixing, and hydrogen sulfide is outgassing into the atmosphere around that time. We still need further analysis to conclude this, but that is a good hypothesis.
Just curious. Anybody else?
Yes, some general comments here. Well, first, I just want to thank you for the information you provided. I think it's has a lot of great value, and I think it's a good question to try to answer. I think what you're trying to do here is basically answer the question of where do you have the higher concentrations of the hydrogen sulfide, and I think that's a great question. But the thing that kind of pops up to me is that I would hope that there would be more sensors near areas of concern, specifically those areas that have a population. So areas like Bombay Beach. I think in relation to the map that you showed where all the concerns are coming from, that should be like a basic roadmap of where we would need more sensors and whether those sensors would be placed by the respective jurisdiction in Imperial County or Riverside County. And I was just wondering if you've taken this also to South Coast AQMD or the Imperial County Air District. I think I noticed that most of your data is all concentrated on sensors that are from Riverside County, and you seem to be tracking the levels of the hydrogen sulfide as it travels either from southeast or the northwest. But I think we also might want to try to figure out, is some of it going from Riverside County to Imperial County, and or some of it going from Imperial County to Riverside County, or is it moving from this side to this side of the? And that's why we need more sensors, right?
Yeah.
We don't have
to-
any, don't you know? We don't have any in Imperial County. No, I meant the smell. I didn't mean
Yeah,
the sense.
no. No, so I mean, these are just general
Yeah.
comments, and I don't have all the history or all the data in front of me related to where sensors are at or where they're not at. But I just say all of that just to add to the fact that I think this is a good, a good question to try to answer. And I would think that the air quality districts on both counties would want to try to answer this. And then I just wanted to also say that I kind of liked your slide on where you showed the example of the Lake Elsinore aeration and mixing system to try to reduce some of that sodium sulfide.
Mhm.
I think those are great things to try to explore. If somehow there was a way for us to try to implement some of that aeration, I know that
Mm.
the lake is huge, so I don't know what the limitations would be on a project like that.
It could be a component in the feasibility study.
But that's yeah, but I mean that's just from a general perspective, it seems like a solution that might help out. So thank you for sharing that. Those were my general comments. Again, just observations. I just emphasize that yeah, it does seem obvious that we need more sensors. And then the other thing is, how much of when you were working on your own study here, did you find that there was a lot of existing data either from Imperial County or Riverside County that you were able to use as part of your own research, or did you feel that there was a lack of data and you had to rely a lot on your own interpretation or gathering of data? And so from your perspective, what would you ask of like AQMD or Imperial County to try to fill in these data gaps? If you were to take this to them, what would be your number one kind of request?
Okay. Thank you for the comments. We really appreciate it. To answer that question, yeah, we did encounter a lot of issues with the lack of available data. And as I mentioned earlier, to try to alleviate this, we installed sensors in collaboration with the Salton Sea Environmental Time Series. We went out on a boat, we installed a sensor on an existing platform. Then we also installed another sensor on an existing NASA platform, again, to try to capture these hydrogen sulfide concentrations. I will mention, though, that South Coast AQMD has been collaborative as well. They recently installed an air sensor in North Shore that is, I'm not sure if it's up and running yet, but I know it does monitor hydrogen sulfide. Another way that we try to account for this lack of data is we have a handheld H2S sensor. The problem with that is that, yes, we can take it anywhere, but there's a few other limiting factors as to just how much continuous data we can capture. As I mentioned earlier, we're only capturing a snapshot of what's really going on with H2S when we use a handheld sensor. What I would ask of other organizations is, like you mentioned, to cover areas that are more populated, to have some sort of warning system when hydrogen sulfide concentrations are very high, to let people know to stay indoors or limit their time outside. I know they have the capability. We've done a lot with our limited capability as well. As I mentioned, we're going out on boats, finding new launch sites every now and then. Yeah, those would be my asks.
And then so you haven't used any of the CCV comités there, don't they have sensors out there too?
I thought they installed a number of them.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
thought they had to.
Yeah, I don't.
I have a couple questions.
Sure.
Thank you.
Yeah.
So, really, thank you for the presentation. Touch this thing. So Thomas Brinkerhoff is in the audience. He's with the Imperial County Air Pollution Control District. We do have monitors, and IAD also has monitors. I don't know if they have hydrogen sulfide capability, but our data is reported and shared with CARB. So I'm hoping, and so my question is, are you going to continue? Is this the end stage, or are you continuing with the study?
Yeah, thank you for the question. To answer the question, yeah, I'm gonna continue working on this. This is gonna be my entire PhD project, so hopefully we'll get more information on this. You mentioned those sensors. I've been out there. We went out there with the handheld sensor, talked to a few people that were a bit more familiar with those sensors that you're mentioning. Yeah, I think they only measure particulate matter because that's a big concern out there. And I really like how they do have warning systems for people out there, like especially in schools. they would have like a flag system where they would let people know, hey, it's going to be a very windy day, a lot of dust emissions for people that are susceptible to that. I would really appreciate something like that in Riverside County as well. And I do want to mention though that the NASA station, that's kind of towards the way of Imperial County. I think that's already Imperial County, but one sensor in Imperial County doesn't really cover the entire area. It's
Right.
not very representative.
Yeah, so that's out at the old naval test site, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So if we don't have it, I'm sure that we need to move in that direction. And Thomas might be able to answer that if he's got some.
I don't know,
Um,
but let's try it, touch it. If it turns green, it's working.
I also really quickly wanted to mention just along the work that we're doing with community science. We're planning our second series of hydrogen sulfide workshops this August. So the work is continuing and we are working with community members. So
And then I do have a question before you start, but maybe you can answer, Thomas. How much is a sensor? Like just
So yeah,
ballpark.
so good morning, Thomas Brinkerhoff with Imperial County PCD, Compliance and Enforcement Manager with our agency. So to go back to what Mr. Kelly was mentioning, we do have a hydrogen sulfide sensor in our monitoring station over in Nyland,
mhm.
in our part of our regulatory monitoring network. That data, if your group or others would like to look at that, I could refer you over to our manager of monitoring, Monica Soucier, and look to see what kind of information that we have historically that could be helpful for your endeavors. When it comes to cost, it all depends on if you're looking at something that's going to be suitable for community monitoring, which is traditionally low cost monitors that can find an accurate depiction of what's going on in a very specific area, versus what we do in our jurisdiction, which is looking at a regional standpoint through our regulatory monitoring network. And the standards that we have in our monitoring stations are much more stringent in order to meet state and federal requirements. So, as you know, like anybody else in our beautiful county in Imperial, we do as much as we can with the budget that we have, with the dollars and cents that we have, and seems to be getting a little more challenging each year.
Can you give me a ballpark? What's the cheap one cost and what's the Louis Vuitton cost?
Oh gosh, I'd have to check with Monica and her team, but it could be in the range of hundreds of thousands of dollars.
Okay,
Yeah, so
thanks.
you're welcome.
Gina, a couple.
Yep.
So in my past life, I was also a fireman and I did confined space rescue. So hydrogen sulfide is an extremely dangerous gas.
Mhm.
It's relative. So it's gravity, specific gravity. It doesn't dissipate. It can stay in a neutral space, in a confined space, so it can be deadly. It's killed people in California in the past. So I'm happy that you're bringing this into the forefront. I think Mr. Brinkerhoff should be a contact to be able to make the connection. And I'm also aware of the prevailing winds. So 2/3 of the time, for Mr. Estrada, it's blowing from Riverside into Imperial.
Mhm.
And 1/3 of the time it's coming from Imperial into Riverside. So we get the predominance of what comes off the sea and the exposures from that.
Mhm.
But thank you again.
Thank you.
Thank you for your service as
Joe,
well.
let's let Joe go next.
I was just going to commend the Alianza team for such a great community science team, especially Diego, just reading more about your background and qualifications and being from North Shore. I think it's really exciting, the leadership that you and the rest of the team are doing on community science, and know that, we're behind you 100%. And we look forward to continue to working on understanding these really challenging and dynamic issues at the sea. I think the research that you've all put together reinforces a lot of the action that General Manager O'Dowd has been leading along with our team on the Salton Sea feasibility study with the Army Corps, and I trust Mr. O'Dowd to convey this research as in the best way that we think the Army Corps will receive it as they consider next steps on the feasibility study process. because I think it's worth tracking a lot of this information. And my hope is that we can work towards some developments that will address these issues and also continue our coordination together. Last thing I would say, I did take a picture of the Lake Elsinore example and sent that to our team to make sure not just that we're tracking it, but that we substantively understand how it works, and maybe we can, make sure that that's being conveyed, that information is being conveyed as well to the feds, and making sure that they understand those types of concepts as we move forward together. So thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So don't go away. We're actually segueing nicely into a broader discussion about how we deal with this. This is a conversation that the authority and its board have been having for at least since our 30th anniversary meeting in 2023. At that time, Tom Kirk said, when they started the Salton Sea Authority, health concerns weren't even being discussed, but nowadays they're becoming the highest priority. So we had introduced it at that time. At that time, we had introduced a concept which we called the health assurance plan. But I thought it would be appropriate to call it the health assurance plan for people like you. So we call it the happy plan. But over time, it's kind of evolved based on digging down into it. And the whole thrust behind it is we have a lot of questions, right? But we don't have answers, and we don't have the resources necessarily to get the answers. And if we had those resources, I'm not sure we know where to put those resources or how to use those resources or who to do it. So we are advancing today a discussion and a concept for the formation of a task force to pursue what we're calling a framework of assurance, so that people who live at and around the sea know that we have a myriad of public agencies and others, universities, who are studying, researching, and are responsible for making sure that people are healthy and safe. I've invited, and we have here today, a number of different people who representing those agencies. We've already met Thomas. Michael Placentia from the Regional Water Quality Control Board is also here. He's the executive director, has a couple of his team members here. Director Tim Lyons, Dr. Tim Lyons is online, and I see he's going to be the next person to speak. And so I'm going to be very brief here. We also have Ms. Hamby, who is routinely part of our conversation and part of Imperial County Public Health. We also have John Coleman, who's with a group called the Bldg Group, a private enterprise who I met with recently. True Confessions, I've known John for a long time. He's a past president of Aqua, but his firm actually represents the Great Basin Unified Pollution Control District at Owens Lake. So we've been having conversations about how they can contribute to this conversation also. But I see it as a coalition of the willing, with the air boards, with the water boards, with the universities, with the environmental justice community to ask the questions, to even figure out what the questions are. So I'm going to pause and let the people in the room participate in a discussion to shape that direction so that we can work together to put this chapter behind us. Because as a friend of mine would say, it's time to land the plane.
So I believe we do have some comments online.
Yes, we have Timothy Lyons.
Okay, Timothy, you're up.
Hi, thanks for that. I'll try to keep it brief. I'm Tim Lyons. I'm a distinguished professor of biogeochemistry at UC Riverside, and I am part of the co-leadership of our Salton Sea Task Force, which many of you hopefully have heard of and perhaps seen our presentations most recently at the Salton Sea Summit that we did last fall at the UCR Palm Desert facility. And I want to thank everyone for this presentation. And I also really what I want to do is stress this framework of cooperation that I think is the goal here, and how much we think we can contribute to that. Many of you will know that our task force is assembled across a diverse array of disciplines. We have med school component dealing with health issues. We're dealing in a very serious way with water quality issues and nutrient delivery. We have air quality folks. We have air transport folks addressing things wide-ranging, including gas transport and aerosol transport. And I won't go into too much of this, but I'll focus in particular on two things. One is that we would love to keep involved with this and would be happy to more systematically present some of the pieces that we're doing as they dovetail into the questions that you're raising across the span of the next weeks, months, and years. And two, talk just a little bit about the work of my student Caroline Hung, because it's so complementary to what we heard today. I agree with so much of what was said today. And what's really pleasing to me is that we also can add to that, I think, and bring some added dimensions, which would be the ultimate goal in any kind of synergistic conversation. We agree wholeheartedly that the root problem in the Salton Sea is the nutrient delivery. We also note that associated with the nutrient delivery, the agricultural runoff are very high levels of sulfate. The sea has now levels of sulfate that are about 6 times what seawater has. In seawater, sulfate is the second most abundant negatively charged ion. So there's a lot of it in seawater. It's second only to chloride, the saltiness that you taste. But it's much higher in the Salton Sea, and it's coming from fertilizer runoff. And as Diego alluded to, what happens is that you have seasonal blooms of algae and bacteria, and they live and they die, and they settle to the bottom and they consume oxygen. And under those anaerobic conditions, sulfate-reducing bacteria have their way with the decaying biomass. And this produces hydrogen sulfide, which has historically been released in many cases in catastrophic ways, where the sulfide has made it all the way to LA and beyond. What I'll highlight today, and I hope you'll maybe ask Caroline to come and make a more systematic presentation on this, is that things are changing really rapidly in that regard. We've been focusing on water quality, our part of the task force, and in particular looking at trends over the past 20-ish years, 10 to 20 years. And what we're finding is that the nutrients are the central driver, and of course they're driving the algal and bacterial blooms that we increasingly think under the high saline conditions are causing many of the respiratory health problems, and we're focusing with med school people on that. But as the sea gets shallower, the extreme conditions of the past are abating in some degree. It used to be, not very long ago, 10 years plus, that you had a very strong temperature stratification in the lake. And so you had warm waters extremely warm waters at the top that float because they're more buoyant, and slightly cooler waters at the bottom. And it would set up a stratification where there would be somewhat inhibited mixing. And on windy days, that mixing would occur, and you would have a catastrophic release of the hydrogen sulfide that is accumulating in those oxygen poor bottom waters. And so you could see that in the data that Diego was showing. So there were big events, and there was a persistent baseline through those summer months during the warm months, but really large events. And long story short, what we're seeing now with the shallowing is that the temperature stratification is less severe. The water is mixing more persistently because it's shallower, and the wind energy is causing that overturn, if you will. And so we're seeing blooms of gypsum that have historically been recorded in the basin that are less severe but more frequent. We're speculating, but we haven't tied to the emission data, and we would love to do that. We're speculating that emissions are more persistent but lower level. And one of the things that I can say with good confidence is that the hydrogen sulfide levels in the lake are actually decreasing because of this more persistent mixing. And so we think one of the really critical health issues is, as Diego alluded to, is this chronic exposure potentially to lower levels, but also potentially more persistently. And so I won't go on. This is a lot of information, but I just wanted to highlight the fact that we care about this very much as well. And we see lots of opportunity for cooperation, and that we really encourage folks to focus on the nutrient problem. And as the presentation highlighted, one of the central solutions to that will be nutrient mitigation through wetlands. We're wholeheartedly convinced that that's a really important part of this equation. Aeration of bottom waters, sure, it's a very large lake, certainly something worth exploring in a feasibility sense. But the lake problem is not going to be solved ultimately until we address the nutrient issue. And I would also encourage, as we think about these models, that it's changing very, very rapidly. And so I often am quoted as saying that when we develop a solution and we take a lot of time and spend a lot of money on a potential solution, I should say, that it might not even be relevant by the time it's fully installed because of the rapid rates of change, in particular related to the changing water depth. So I'll leave it at that. And if there are any questions about this, I'm happy to do it online later. Feel free to send me and I'll forward your emails to Caroline. Caroline has a paper that's in review that develops some of the ideas that I've mentioned. And we're all, I can speak for the UCR community, big thumbs up on trying to be integrated into whatever coordinated efforts you have going forward. So thanks for that.
Thank you, Mr. Lyons.
All right, I have two more comments.
Mhm.
Lisa?
Lisa? Who's online?
Lisa, you've been unmuted.
Hello. I'm not Lisa, I'm Czar, but I'm not sure where
Oh.
you're seeing and name Lisa. That's really weird. Um, but I'm living in Bombay Beach, and I just wanted to follow up on the questions that I'm not sure who's talking, but somebody asked about the smell and if we, our past residents or generational residents, have smelled the smell, and we all smell the smell when there's a smell. It's just that it's not constant and it's not all the time. And the most of the time when we do smell something, it seems like it's coming from the dairy fields and the cows, because it's like a really, really pungent cow smell, not like something weird. And then other times it's just like a general like oceany smell, like a fishy smell, but it's not very strong. It's just like top layer, and everybody smells it no matter how long they've been here. And then I had a question regarding the trail that's being built. Like we've heard a lot about it, but in Bombay Beach, every time we ask, like, well, is it gonna come this far? They're like, no, because Riverside and Imperial County aren't working together with it. It's like something Imperial County has to decide to do. I'm wondering if that has changed.
Thank you, Sar. I don't know if you know the answer or if Supervisor Kelly, who I'm supposed to call Director Kelly in this instance. We'll put him on the hot seat.
Yeah, Zara, we're aware of the request, and I know that the North End Action Council has been talking with Alianza and formulating an idea of a walking path that goes to the sea from Nyland. And at one point in the future, I think that a ICTC conversation would have to start in regards to joining in with CVAG.
Thank you for that, because it sure would be fun to take that bike ride all the way around, well, halfway.
Yeah, and I just wanted to point out that there is a yearly bike ride that people take from, I'm not sure how far up they come, but they definitely come through Riverside County, through past the Salton Sea, and they go into Slab City to camp out. And this is a yearly bike ride that a lot of people do from across the world. They come to try to do this, and like we see them, we're like, oh my gosh, we're gonna die, but they're all doing it together. So we're like, you guys are good, I guess. But yeah, I think it would be very beneficial for just tourism because they're already doing it, and to make it more beautiful would be more beneficial.
Thank you. I appreciate your comments. Glad you're listening.
So I mentioned the group of people who are here and online participating with us today. One person that Diego mentioned earlier that I wanted to particularly highlight was Dr. Freelich from Brown University that worked with Diego on producing this report. She's been very instrumental and keenly interested in the community-based science aspect of this. And she is online and I believe unmuted.
We go. Okay, I think I'm unmuted now and can share. Yeah, thank you for the time to speak. And first, thank you, Leon and Diego, for all the work that you've done and for that very clear and insightful presentation, and everybody else for your questions about our work and engagement with it. I wanted to add a few comments on this. One is the questions came up about the monitoring of hydrogen sulfide and CCV's network. That's all particulate matter. It is much lower cost to measure particulate matter than it is to measure hydrogen sulfide. And so that's why it's a community. We were able to purchase 2 of these monitors, but those are tens of thousands of dollars and they're not the regulatory grade monitors. They do work in these extreme environments though, which is great. And then the other question was about these trends, and I think we're really limited by data in being able to detect trends, sort of reflecting on what Dr. Lyons was mentioning about their work. As Diego said, these historical something changed. In these historical monitors, we are only able to see wind that was blown towards the community sensors, or hydrogen sulfide that was blown towards these community sensors. And as a result, I think we don't necessarily have confidence in any trends or any interannual variability. And in our data, which we present in the paper, which is 2013 to 2023, we don't see any trends in the amount of hydrogen sulfide, although we looked for that. The other thing I'll highlight about our community science-based work, and this is really about measuring close to where people live, is we see that the lake is still quite stratified in shallow areas and can have very low oxygen, even in these really shallow waters, 2 to 5 meters in our community science data. And I think all of this is just highlighting the need for more data to understand what's going on physically in the lake, right? To know, like, will aeration work? We certainly agree that nutrient reduction is needed as well as part of a suite of solutions. And that it's very important to understand mechanistically what's going on here, and in particular, how it's affecting the communities. And so thank you all. And again, we're happy for these collaborative work, with other universities, including UC Riverside, and the array of community organizations as well, and agencies, of course.
Thank you. Do we have anybody else online?
No,
No.
do not.
Any other board member comments at this time? Patrick, you want to talk about the task force?
So I would just like, the consensus of the board and direction. This thing is unbelievable. Just to pursue this, and I know that all that I've spoken to are interested at some level. I'd love to partner with Diego in the development of this framework and pulling together all of the different people and figuring out what the right number of monitors, what the right location, making sure collaboratively that the right number of monitors, the right type of monitors, the right location of monitors, and equally as important that the data that's being gathered, and not just monitors, right, the entire effort to understand this evolving ecosystem. And as that information comes together, provide a reliable medium working together with the state and Miguel and others, where people can consistently and reliably go to get the questions they have answered, or the resources they need satisfied. So I think it's a developmental concept. Of course, it may need some Prop 4 resources, but sorry, I had it. It's clearly going to take some resourcing as it evolves over time, but I think it's a critical part of answering questions that have been long lingering in the community for at least a generation and probably longer. So with the board's direction, I'd like to invite the stakeholders and participants to have conversations over the coming week and bring back in September a more concise plan and direction for this effort.
Question.
Go ahead.
Would you be bringing, when you bring it back, would you be bringing a list, a recommendation of who would be part of this task force, or how are you, do you have the list in mind already?
I don't know what I don't know.
Okay.
And we don't know, who does what. And I think the key for all of this, the key for all of our collective success is to make sure that the right people are doing the right thing at the right time with the right resources. And that's, an imperfect effort, but I know, I use Owens Lake kind of as the gold standard of what we could reasonably expect from a monitoring and mitigation framework. And we don't have $6 million from LADWP to build this machine with. And we don't have 200 monitors, one every square kilometer, to gauge this stuff. And we probably don't need all of that. But we need X, and we just need to define what X is. And I think with all the people in this room and online and others who are not yet part of this conversation, but should be contributing, we ought to be able to get to a long-term sustainable framework where people can understand that we have public agencies that do this stuff day in and day out. They know what they're doing their job, and you don't have to worry about this stuff. And if there are issues of concern, people are being educated and informed about those concerns and being provided the resources they need to protect themselves in the interim while some of these things are being addressed. I think 95% of this work is already being done. It's just a matter of efficiently aligning all the efforts that have been done, eliminating the frustration with getting the data you need to answer the questions you have. This doesn't seem, it's big, and that's what scares everybody. The Salton Sea is just big, but I think it's a manageable elephant that we can eat if we have a big banquet and carve it all up and eat it together. So I think that's the way we have to approach the problem.
Yeah, I would agree that it seems like a lot of the information is being produced somewhere by some agency or some jurisdiction, and I just want to be sensitive to the changes in policies that some of this may create or might not create. So I think we need to be able to rely on good data, specifically if the result of this ends up being, regulatory actions on agriculture, on wastewater treatment plants, things of that nature. I think we heard the concern about nutrient delivery, specifically, I think pointing to those types of operations and industries. And so those are big statements. And I think we just need to be careful. And we actually just need to make sure that we have the right information and the data that moves us in the right direction as we set policy.
And I think more likely, that information will better inform the development of future projects, and in particular, the projects being developed by the feasibility study, because I think, Dr. Lyon mentioned and others that these wetlands are good digesters of those nutrients. And I think that properly planned, designed, and implemented, a lot of this stuff can be addressed through developing what the future ecosystem will look like and be. And I think this will just be contributory to that effort.
Yeah, I think you're aware, I'm aware, some of us might be aware that there's been efforts to try to answer those questions related to nutrients. I think CVILC might be a group that has tried to answer that question for agriculture in the Coachella Valley. I'm sure that the wastewater treatment plants are collecting nutrient samples as part of their permits. And so all that information is being produced some ways, somehow, if it needs to be looked at further with a more frequent manner, then, those are things that we should think about. But when we start getting closer to pinpointing where the problem is at, I think we need to be pretty sure that we have all the information to make those types of decisions. Those are general comments. Thank you.
But I mean, and I understand your comments, Castilla, but I think we can't gloss over the fact that we've known for decades. It keeps doing this lovely thing.
Can't touch it.
I know, I can't touch it again. We can't ignore the fact that or gloss over the fact that we've known for decades that it's a cycle. Nutrients come in, fish die, algae blooms, Salton Sea burps. We all smell it. We always call it the big burp. That's what I've been calling it forever. Oh, it burped again, because that's when we get the smell. I think just getting more research and knowledge of how that air quality density is happening from the sea actually receding is going to be valuable information. And I know us at Torres Martinez, we've been talking about putting up more air stations on tribal land. I know we were talking about putting one down near West Shore. So, we're happy to try to help figure out the air quality and get air stations in the area, because I mean, it affects the whole region. But I think we can't gloss over it. I understand what you're saying, that we don't want to pinpoint that it's any specific industry's fault that this is happening. We're all aware that this is happening. We just have to figure out how we can quantify the data to come up with a reasonable solution for everybody.
Yeah, if we have to pinpoint, we should, if the data suggests it. I mean, if that's the truth, is the truth. I just wouldn't want to do it without the data. But the truth is the truth, and if the effort here is to get to the truth, and we need the information to do that, you know, I'm 100% for that. I think that's what we're trying to answer, and it sounds like we either need to put information that's somewhere in one spot, or create it if it doesn't exist. And so I'm 100% for pinpointing what the problem is, to then be able to resolve it.
Director Kelly?
So there are many contributing factors, and one of them being the effluent that's coming from Mexico. And I know it's not the sulfites and the ag runoff, but the Regional Quality Water Board is in the House. And as I was a city mayor and council member in Brawley, our discharge permit, we couldn't at that time, this is 15 years ago, we could not divert our effluent, our clean secondary treated water, into an industrial use, because our permit required, the regional board wanted to hold us to continue to discharge to put clean water into the New River, which was 6,000 acre feet a year versus a flow of, I believe it's 38,000, or maybe it's more. I've got the Alamo and the New River mixed up. But that was counterintuitive, that we were cleaning water to put into a dirty system, and then it flows. So there is movement for addressing New River. It's starting to get included in conversation about Tijuana. I'm glad that you made a presentation that industry, geothermal, is not the contributing factor. That probably needs to be honed in a little bit more. But one thing I think you should probably be looking at is the geyser that's on Highway 111. I've been out there on site. Sometimes I've almost dropped to my knees because I couldn't get a gasp of air. There's a lot coming out of that geyser, and I don't think it's hydrogen sulfide, but it could be.
I drove by there today. Anybody else?
Yes, I have two more comments. Lisa T.
Lisa, you're up. Or mine.
That's so strange. Yeah, again, it's Star Tide. I'm not sure where the Lisa came from.
You gotta
But
change your name. You gotta change your
yeah,
name on your.
But
yeah, I do.
Yeah.
And another thing I didn't see or hear about, you guys didn't really talk about the heat and how the heat affects everything. We have a small fish farm right here on Spa Road, and next to it, in front of the Hot Mineral Spa Bashfords, there is a small, like, not a lake because it's not that big, it's like a little pond that they stock with tilapia, just for the residents to come and feed the tilapia and just enjoy the pond. Um, I went out there yesterday, and there's like 8 dead tilapia there. And I'm assuming it's because of the heat, because there's no other, like the salt, everything that's coming from the sea, that's not happening in this. So I was wondering if you guys have any data regarding the heat and everything that's happening, because it's not just what's in the sea to me.
Well, it is hot.
If it's my turn, I can address that on one level. Is it my
Mr.
turn?
Lyons. It's your turn,
Okay.
Mr. Lyons.
Okay, great, thanks. So yeah, the heat, that has physiological impacts on the fish for sure. But one thing that people don't consider enough is the effect of the heat and salinity, which has increased dramatically. It's now basically twice seawater. That affects oxygen solubility. So that's in a pretty significant way. So that's part of the equation as well. It's a complex system, but I think there's a really strong risk to say that we should be very careful about committing to a workable hypothesis and even thinking about mitigation strategies until we have more data. I agree that the long-term trends are perhaps patchy, but there are certainly suggestions of significant change that you would predict that would go hand in hand with decreasing water depth. And what we do know empirically are the properties of the water column. We look at them all the time, and we can see the change over rapid timescales. Listen, you can blame who you want, but it's a hypereutrophic system. It goes anoxic seasonally. This is not rocket science in that sense. As Diego pointed out, these systems are infamous throughout the world. And there are mitigation strategies, and they almost always involve trying to treat for delivery of nutrients. So my cautionary note is to not forget that. I've seen entire reports where oxygen and nutrient aren't even mentioned. Salinity is key as well, but they all go hand in hand. It's system science. It's a basic system science problem. And we should keep feeding new data into that study. And as we refine at the first and second and third order what we do to try and address these problems, we have to start with some kind of working hypothesis. And I put to you today that a lot of that starts with the idea of nutrient delivery in a lake that's changing its salinity, changing its temperature, and changing its water depth. And I can tell you with some degree of certainty that those microbial blooms that are driving, and bacterial and algal blooms that are driving the low oxygen conditions are also, perhaps through aerosol delivery, causing the sickness. We can see relationships between bloom frequency and respiratory visits to emergency rooms. We published a paper on that. So now 20 years into looking at the Salton Sea with increasing intensity, I can tell you that there's a lot that we know, and there's a lot that's not particularly surprising. And we just have to be really careful navigating the political landscape to not miss the fact that we don't want to wait too long and that we want to invest in continued monitoring to focus and really have our hands on the problems and the sources of those problems, but that we know an awful lot right now. And it's really important that we get that out to people and that we work as a team to try and challenge what we're saying, but to test it in a basic science way. This is a basic science problem. And I put to you today that I think we more or less know what's going on, and we know that it's changing and it will continue to change. And whatever strategy we adapt has to be adaptable to those changes. So I'll end the preach. I'm sorry about that, but thanks for the time.
What, am I able to make a comment as well? Okay, sorry. I just wanted to add on to what Dr. Lyons was saying and also address a comment. I think what's really important about the work that we're conducting is air quality issues, health issues do not know county lines. It's not going to stop once it hits Imperial County. It's not going to stop once it hits Riverside County. They're going to continue, and they're going to continue to exacerbate with the recession of the lake and the ongoing issues. So I think for me, it's really just kind of to repeat some of the items that he mentioned. It's important to conduct more data, to conduct more research, because the communities that reside within the Salton Sea region are worth investing in, are worth focusing on. And I think it's just essential that we focus on collaboration and prioritizing community and health needs. Thank you.
I agree.
Yeah.
Excellent. Thank you so much. Thank you, Juliana. Thank you, Diego. Do we have any more?
No other comments.
No. Okay.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
We appreciate it. Yeah, you'll make your meeting. I know. See, I didn't say it, and shoot, we gotta hurry up. Okay, back to our framework, our task force. Are we, oh no, sorry.
Second it.
Okay, it has been moved and seconded to come back for a direction for a framework task force. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Thank you so much. Moving on to the feasibility study update. Can't wait. Bated breath. That's what we have.
It's important.
Touch it once
I know.
and don't touch it again.
It's important, but it will be brief. two things that I wanted to report out on the feasibility study, the most important of which is, and it will inform and affect everything with respect to the ultimate project that is developed from the feasibility study, is the hydrologic model that's developed for the sea and the project over time. And we've been working in various different directions and different strategies to create a team to accomplish that work. And I think we are pretty close to having that finalized, perhaps as early as this month. Certainly by the end of this quarter, that work will be underway. And I think that its timely completion is critical to the success of developing these types of projects that will be sustainable for future generations. The other part of this that is important is the funding aspect of it. This was originally a 3-year, $3 million study, and through a year of scoping and working together with our state partners and our federal partners, we developed a scope for the study that's it's a considerably longer time because it deals with the entire ecosystem of the sea, and it's a $22.5 million study. It's the funding from the federal side comes incrementally and over time, and so we are working now to identify the funding mechanism for the state side. I mean, the federal side. The state side, I understand, is associated with the bond, so there may be some timing issues there. And the federal side is appropriative process. So this is just a delicate dance both on the state and federal side, so that the annual funding required to keep this on track in a timely basis is difficult and challenging. And to that end, we'll be discussing after the strategic planning some federal and state letters that need to go out, that we're asking our member agencies to go out to encourage the expedient treatment of that request. But that's all I have to report on the feasibility study, Madam President, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
Any questions? How about we move on to Tara, strategic planning?
Come on down. You're the next contestant on The Price is Right.
You've done this before.
Oh, for the, yeah. Oh, you can't miss it. You're supposed to slow down in that little section.
Yeah, use the term supposed to.
I followed a sheriff today. It's kind of fun.
Yeah.
I'm just gonna go ahead and get
Why don't you touch your mic one more time? One more
Once,
time.
not
Once and let it go. I know.
like Moses.
I know, yeah.
Don't touch it.
Okay.
Intuitively, you want to keep doing it until you see it turn green.
Right behind you.
The delay.
Oh, I'm not logged into the Zoom meeting. I'm just trying to share directly here.
Yeah, we're requiring it to be through the Zoom
Okay.
facilities.
Then I'll just do it. I'll
Okay.
just speak to it.
Okay.
I don't want to like hold up everybody to like log in and do all of that work.
But your graphics are so beautiful.
Email them to
Thank
us.
you. I'll email. It'll be on the website.
You have it.
There you go.
Pull up a presentation. You emailed it this morning.
So let's start with a little overview of the strategic planning process. We'd like to discuss what that might look like. There has been in the past a strategic plan back in there it is. Look at that. Beautiful. It's amazing. Miracles really do happen if you believe. So I just want to go over an overview of the presentation today. It's very short, but I wanted to get your feedback and opinions on a process, and B, ensure that we have direction to move forward on a strategic plan. We'll talk about the purpose a little bit. We'll talk about the process that we like to go through as CV strategies, a little bit of our experience in that space, what the architecture of the strategic plan would look like, and then what next steps would be, how we would implement that. Just as a reminder, there was a strategic plan back in 2019, like 100 years ago, under a completely different regime. And we definitely reviewed all of that information to ensure that what we have moving forward is reflective of the work that's been done, but also advances where we're headed. The purpose of a strategic plan, or at least this one, will be to guide decisions, to empower staff to make informed decisions, both in times of crisis and also on a day-to-day basis. So we're not, we're able to move the director's vision forward in a way that's consistent with what they would like to see and how the agency is constructed. I know that Patrick likes to say he has a lot of bosses, and we want to make sure those bosses are very happy. We want to educate stakeholders, so this will be an tool and resource to inform stakeholders on what the Salton Sea Authority is doing and how it plans to move forward. And it will also inform kind of the state work and really ensure that everyone is moving towards the same direction, kind of rowing in the same direction, so that we can really make some progress. And we've had a very beautiful presentation from Alianza earlier today. I want to make sure those things are all aligned, and we can help ensure that happens through something like this. We also want to provide a little accountability. So we've got some things that I know the board is really trying to do, and to ensure that accountability moving forward, we will have action plans with targeted deadlines. That is a staff tool and resource, but an ability to report back to the board on any successes and how we're moving towards completion of the strategic plan. We tend to build 5 and 10-year strategic plans. This one we feel like would be a shorter one because we have a lot of things that are more immediate before we start to look at sort of that long-term horizon strategic plan type. Just a few of the pieces that we've done before in terms of San Bernardino County and doing their community vital signs and their community health assessment, and really identifying the data that would help drive that county forward and their health goals. And then also all of our work doing community service, Harupa Community Services District, strategic planning, along with a bunch of different other special districts and associations, including CalLAFCO and their strategic planning process, which has been quite monumental in terms of engaging the entire state, counties in that LAFCO process. So really excited about that. The process for this will be fairly simple. We want to really ensure that we're securing board feedback. So today we'll get some direction. It's not a voting piece, but we'd love to hear from the board in order to make sure that we've got some buy-in. The board action will happen much later down the line when we actually have a strategic plan draft in front of you. We'll move on to one-on-one meetings so that we can secure the different perspectives of the board members and make sure that that's included within the plan. We'll then host a board workshop and then provide the craft the plan following that board workshop, and then create a strategic plan for you to adopt moving forward. A little architecture of the plan. We like to start with a pretty heavy background, including a current environmental scan, which I know we talk a lot about the environment, but in this case, it's more about the entire landscape that we find ourselves in, both legislative, regulatory, environmental, health, all of those kinds of things. We'll identify all of the different stakeholders that are impacted by the Salton Sea Authority and who have a stake in it. And then we'll identify the accomplishments that we've handled from the previous strategic plan to today. We'll identify a core brand, which will be kind of new, advancing the mission, vision, and values, and that will be part of that board workshop. And then finally, we'll identify strategic areas of focus with overarching objectives, and then some SMART goals with key actions in order to accomplish those SMART goals. And finally, and most importantly, key performance indicators to ensure that we actually identify what success looks like. I love a good strategic plan that doesn't actually identify success. We don't like that, right? So we want to make sure that this is really clearly identified and that we're moving towards a specific finish line. So just to kind of talk about next steps, as a reminder, we're going to do some one-on-ones. We'll conduct that board workshop. We'll craft the strategic plan, and then we're hoping that you adopt the plan as we move forward. Are there any questions?
I just want to go back to you were discussing a shorter instead of a 10 to 15 year, I'm thinking 5 to 10. What's in your head?
So because we have a lot of really key things right now, like the feasibility study, we've got the framework of assurance, we've got some potential rebranding that we're maybe looking at. Those are things that are immediate and very large. So to try and tackle what 10 years looks like when we've got so much in front of us in the next five feels just like a little too long in the tooth, and we don't know what that will look like in 5 years. Sometimes, when you've got a water district or a special district and they're going to be doing the same thing year in and year out, providing water at affordable, their mission statement's always going to be provide water at affordable rate, right? High quality water, affordable rate.
Right.
We can definitely know what 10 years is likely to look like. It's just going to be about what their capital improvement plan looks like, and then kind of weaving that into what the value of the organization is.
Thank you, Tara.
Any other
I think
questions?
it's great because I had a question when I first got on this board about what the strategic plan was and where it was. And anybody else? Any other comments?
Well, that's where this originated, Madam President. When you did first come on the board, you asked about a strategic plan, and I'm thankful that the board chose to have you serve a second term, which allows us the time to implement this process. I think it'll be very helpful, not just internally, but externally as well.
Thank you.
All right. And with that, thank you so much again, board. I will see you soon.
Thank you. Looking forward to that follow-up. All right. State and federal advocacy letters of support.
So in your board packets are form support letters, one for federal requests and one is for state requests, and for different purposes. And I've asked our advocates, both our DC advocate and our Sacramento advocate, to explain the request and maybe a brief highlight of where we're at and where we're going with their activities.
Let's start with Lisa.
Hey, good morning, everyone. Good afternoon. Not sure what time you've got there. So Patrick alluded to it a little bit in his presentation. For the core feasibility study, what we have historically done to fund that, and just to be clear, we're looking at the ask or for funds for the core to continue doing its work. And so historically, I think we've raised federally something like $5 million-ish. We have two avenues to secure funding, either through the appropriations process or through the administrative process, which is known as the core work plan. And so we're pursuing that again. We did get $3.8 million in the work plan at the end of the Biden administration, which at that time looked like it would carry us through FY26. We learned after the appropriations process started in Congress and actually closed in terms of taking requests, we learned that they had what they call capability for another $1.76 million. And we rely on the Corps to tell us how much money they need and can spend. We can't ask for more money than they will telegraph to Congress that they can actually spend. So even though it was late, we did submit that to Congress. Senator Padilla did put it in his request. That is now pending. It's an energy and water appropriations bill request. That bill won't have its markup until the beginning of August. We also, Patrick and I and Lowry visited with Scott Cameron, who's the Assistant Secretary at Interior for Water and Science, and his Chief Deputy this week, really just to talk about, make them aware of the core study, its importance, how the core work can help the Department of Interior manage its own lands as a major landowner. Scott also works very closely with the core officials that we work closely with. And so we put in a plug for just better coordination between Interior and the Corps, and in particular, sort of as the Corps determines what its work plan funding request will be for FY26, and that won't come out for some time, that the Interior Department expressed, the importance of this just as a general Interior Department priority that the Corps of Engineers within the administration funds this work. And so we had a very good sort of first meeting with them. It was really focused on that, just sort of educating them about the work and why it's sort of relevant and important to the Department of Interior. So in the packet, as doing all of that, periodically members will ask us for, just showing additional support for the work. And so there's an advocacy letter in your packet that could be sent by, we have that. This is sort of why we did the resolution a few weeks ago, so that we have the board members and their organizations on record supporting the core study. But it's really an advocacy letter then that could be sent by environmental groups, other water districts, just other groups in the community that can recognize sort of the importance of the core study. So that's the purpose of it. It's really just to have, as we need to advocate for that additional funding for this year and then funding for future years as well.
They make a difference.
And when do those need to be submitted by?
So we're sort of fine from the approach standpoint with the resolution. I mean, we'd be happy to have it sooner rather than later. But having said that, the markup is August 1st. So this is really just, it'd be nice to have them, as soon as we can get them, but there's no real hard and fast deadline. The work plan process will unfold actually after FY26 appropriations are completed. I will say that, so how that works is that the Corps of Engineers within the Energy and Water Appropriations Bill they have an account called investigations. That's where our money comes from. That account in the House bill so far is set at $200 million. Sometimes it's almost entirely earmarked. It is not. There's actually a lot of wiggle room for the Corps in its work plan, at least as the House moves forward. So I'm really, we're really talking more about targeting that process at this point. So we have a little bit of time. What I would like to, when we did the core study originally, we had support letters for getting the actual authorization through. And so we had an environmental group letter that had like the Pacific Institute on it and a bunch of other groups, Audubon and others. EJ groups, San Diego Water wrote us a letter of support. At each individual authority agency wrote a letter of support. So it's just a packet that I kind of keep and have, and I can use for these different purposes as we try to, move forward. So, sooner rather than later, but the breadth is kind of more important at this point than the timing. So if that makes sense.
Yes, it's only because ID's dark for a little bit, so that's why I was asking.
Oh, gotcha.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So,
No,
and I
thank
have
you.
all of those the old letters, again, were targeted, the sort of ask at that point was to support the actual study, which at the time we were calling the Perimeter Lake Study, but it's like the same thing. So Patrick, I think, has those, or I could send them to you so you can sort of see who sent last time, but that's kind of a thumbnail of where we got them the last time. I would love to sort of expand that to include some additional groups in maybe Congressman Calvert's district as our only appropriator right now in California. So that's another target I've talked to Patrick about.
Good idea.
Yeah.
All right. Anybody else? Any questions?
I had a question for Lisa. Lisa, this is Ryan. So there's an announcement. It came out about a week ago that BLM has a competitive lease for geothermal rights at the Salton Sea. Most of this land, it's in the Salton Sea non-geothermal resource area, but it is underwater. And so I'll send this announcement to Patrick. He can share it with you.
Okay, great.
Thank you. Anything else, Lisa?
I think that's about it. All the nominations that we've talked about, they're still pending. So the Corps of Engineers, actual Assistant Secretary for Water and Science. I talked to some folks in nominations on the Senate side today, and they're just they're having to take votes on everyone. So there's no particular problem with Andrea or Adam, the Corps of Engineers nominee. It's just slow going. So I just kind of checked in on those two to see if there were issues, and there aren't, it's just a calendar making time to vote issue.
Yeah. Thank you. We
Sure.
appreciate it. Moving on to cruise strategies.
Thank you, Chair. Nick Romo with Cruise Strategies. I want to start with where we are in the legislative calendar. During this board meeting, the legislature wrapped up essentially its first half of the year. They're headed for a 1 month recess. So your members will be coming down back to the district for a good summer recess for 30 days, and we're back in Sacramento on August 18th. Before they left, they passed through a couple thousand pieces of legislation, including many budget related bills to kind of get us through the next few months here. We all know that, as Lisa mentioned, there's actions at the federal level that will continue to impact the state budget. There is an anticipation that discussions around the state budget will continue into the late summer, potentially into the fall with the special session. Why do we, in terms of for our work, we're watching very closely because, as you know, with budget setting, if we have to close certain gaps, they're going to have to find funds, general funds or any other types of funds that are not specifically dedicated for a particular purpose. So we'll be watching sort of the entire budget, how it shifts as the sort of legislature and the governor responds to federal impacts. Specifically on our Prop 4 request, we have been hard at work discussing our request for $5 million of the $10 million that's available in the climate bond for the authority and the conservancy. We've had several productive discussions. I'd like to thank Patrick for being involved in many of those and helping us to not just tell the story of here and now, but also the history of the work of the authority, as well as the history of the legislation that has gone through that got us to this point. When we last spoke, we had anticipated that the proposition $4 were going to move a little bit more quickly. We thought potentially that they would come to a deal before they left for their recess. But they have signaled that the Proposition 4 discussions will extend all the way through the end of session, which is just after Labor Day in September. So we do have time to regroup and to gather local support, which is similar to what Lisa mentioned, is very well taken and needed to support our work here in Sacramento. In your agenda, you have a draft letter urging all members of the budget committees, as well as Senator Padilla and other key members to include $5 million in the administration's final and the legislature's final Prop 4 spending plan for the authority for very distinct and enumerated purposes to help the authority and all the things that you are working on, including part of the discussion that you had today. Great presentation. And in terms of timing for that, we really love to see letters by August 11th, kind of a week prior to when they return back to a session here. That would give us some time as well to circulate and build support among kind of our broader delegation, including Riverside County, for this type of request. But we're right at the table. We've kind of built our table, brought our own lawn chair. And we're right on time in terms of our advocacy for this. So thank you for the support thus far. I'm hoping that we get some additional letters and additional discussions. And the last thing I'll say is, as I mentioned, the legislatures will be coming back to their district for a month. So if you see them around town and community events or local government meetings, definitely be helpful to discuss with them this request and the need to work with the budget staff and your team up here in Sacramento to come to a measured deal here on the Prop 4 spending plan.
Thank you, Nick. I appreciate that. Are you sure that the Prop 4 funding was included in our packets?
The Prop 4 letter, I believe
Letter of
it's
support?
It's on
Yeah,
it's on the website.
Okay.
we'll send it around. Yeah.
I think I distributed it this morning. Did I include it? I got it. this morning.
Okay, okay. Got it. It wasn't in the original board pack. That's why I'm asking.
Yeah.
Okay.
That is,
Oh, sure.
the copies of those letters are available in Word and PDF format on our meeting website for anybody who's interested in providing a letter.
Got it. Thank you.
Hey, feel free to, if you do write a letter, feel free to send us a copy, and we're happy to distribute, submit it on your behalf to folks, just from kind of administrative perspective. So we'll keep you updated on the summer. And again, it's, part of our work to make sure that the Prop 4 spending plan wasn't rushed, that they gave it the time it needed and discussions that were needed, particularly on details for the Salton Sea Authority. And so we're making progress, and sometimes as you know, it's they keep some of the major pieces toward the last few weeks of session, and so we want to make sure that when they're having those discussions, that they're well aware of our requests and the need to find an alternative spending allocation plan. So thank you, Chair. Thank you, Director.
And I would say you could send it to me and I'll forward it to Nick if that would be more convenient. I would also say, I know that we've had discussions about whether $5 million is the right number. This is a conversation that Joe and I and we in the state have had over and over. And I think everybody is in good faith trying to get to the right number. I think the only difference between our proposal and the state's proposal is we didn't ask for all of the money. We just asked for half of it. So hopefully I'm confident this will end in the right place.
Thank you, everybody. I appreciate that. Is there any discussion? Do we need to make a motion then, or that was just information? Okay, thank you. All right, let's move on to appointments to ad hoc committees.
Madam President. STEM, it goes on.
Yeah.
In your board packet, there is recommendations based on my conversation from you and your direction to me for board assignments for the coming board year. They reflect substantially all of the same positions held last year, with the exception of principally Director Morales, who has been appointed to every committee under the sun.
And somebody named Morales.
But it's also important to recognize that, as part of the strategic planning exercise, we have had some utility for these committees, but I think that there's some efficiency that can be gained by looking at what we're doing and why we're doing it. So this may be something that gets revisited after the strategic planning is done. And with that, I would recommend approval of the committee assignments per your direction.
Speak now or forever hold your peace. Is everybody good? Did everybody look that over? Haha, too late. You're nominated. I will accept a motion to approve.
I'll make a motion.
I will second. So it's been moved and seconded for the ad hoc committees as presented in our board packet. All those in favor? Aye. All those opposed? As Joe feverishly looks over there to see if he's in there. Again, all those opposed? And motion carries unanimously. Excellent. Project updates, North Lake demonstration project?
The state team, the county and the authority have been working feverishly trying to get to the point where we can get a project in the ground. There's been, a lot of work done trying to answer enormous amounts of technical questions with respect to the site and the project. I think that we're close to coming to resolution on what is enough. I know that there's been recent conversation between ex officio Shea and Juan Perez about working together on finalizing the technical requirements by the state to move forward with the project. And ex officio Shea has offered to share an update on that.
Thank you. Yeah, so we are still working really hard to try to build out the concept for the pilot project. My sense right now is, given the existing, dollars on hand that we have and the amount of analyses that we need to do in terms of, substantiating water, what we call the water budget for the project, not just annually, but on a month-to-month basis, particularly in these hot times of the year. We've just heard about the significance of what those mean for the environment and certainly the performance of our projected projects. So right now, thanks to the leadership at Riverside County, their team of consultants are working really hard to identify how exactly we can come up with the water budget to implement the project as designed. I think we're also thinking about some fancy footwork we're going to need to do to demonstrate momentum around the current budget that we have, which is likely not enough to achieve the full project, but to phase it and make sure that we're putting one foot in front of the other, showing forward progress and what will happen, as we continue along this path. I like to remind folks that, our SCH project, right, started off much smaller, and over the course of being able to demonstrate forward progress, momentum, effectively deploying dollars to achieve big milestones and big steps, we were able to draw down more resources and build this thing out. Not gonna sugarcoat anything. There's plenty of challenges that we have with advancing this project, and we are working really hard to address those. Whether we're talking about geotech, the construction of the berm, and analyzing the seepage rate from the lake, and factoring that when we think about the water that we're going to need, and then also if we're looking at connecting infrastructure upstream, there are certainly impacts to environmentally sensitive species that we have to account for. I mean, in plain speak, it's just another day on the Salton Sea for us and our team, because these are issues that are really challenging in the context of building all of our projects. But certainly, as we look at this one, I would just say, last thing is I still remain really excited about the potential of this project. And I understand that this has been a long road for folks who have been working to try to envision something. And there have been, changes in design somewhat recently. And I understand that I'm relatively new to the scene, but just want to say that, I really want to find a way to do this and to make people excited about it. And I think that there are still the inputs here to try to make something happen. And I remain excited about that. If anyone from Riverside County is on and wants to say anything, would welcome that too, because they've been really great partners. And I think that's what's also really exciting about this, is to be in partnership with the folks at Riverside and Mr. O'Dowd. So, let's keep it going. Let's keep working on this. And, hopefully we'll have some really exciting stuff to show for it soon.
Thank you, Joe. Does anybody online want to speak to that?
Not at this time.
Okay, thank you. Okay, we're going to move on to Desert Shores.
I just want to agree with Joe. I think it's going to take hard work to get a project of quality that begins to address the needs of the community, and it's not easy. It's rigorous. It takes work, but we should have much more to report on that at our next board meeting in September.
Really?
Well, I think so.
Okay, all right. You heard it here first.
I think by September we're going to have some clarity on some of this stuff.
Excellent.
I think.
Excellent.
So on Desert Shores, if I even get close, on Desert Shores, as we reported last month, the Nicholas Group is completing their engineering work and should have their completed report by the end of the third quarter, which will give us the information we need with respect to hydrology and the geotechnical information about how and what can be done to restore that lake and inform the project that can be developed there. So again, September, we will have more information on that project also. I did want to point out that at our last board meeting, pursuant to a request by the Bureau, we did approve an advance to the Bureau a request for a modification and extension of the grant agreement to allow certain funds which were designated construction dollars to be used for pre-construction design and testing purposes because of the additional costs associated with drilling, test wells, and otherwise that we did not anticipate in the original project budget. That request was immediately submitted to the Bureau, but because of their staffing issues, we're being informed that implementing that extension may be delayed, and those delays may have an impact on the project. We are working very closely with our core partners at the local level, at the regional level, and at the federal level to make sure that this project, the importance of this project is highlighted and that it is not unduly delayed. And I am hoping for the best, but wanted to inform the board of potential challenges in that regard.
Thank you. Bombay Beach?
This is transferred to the state, I think, for the purpose of this report on it going forward. I think I'm going to remove that and allow that to be part of the state's discussion of their ongoing SSMP projects. That's my understanding. I don't know if it's completed yet. I think the state has assumed responsibility for the Bombay Beach project.
Yeah, and I would say that our team is working on a public update of some sort, either plugging into some sort of event that's happening at Bombay later this year, or potentially doing our own thing, because we think that we're going to be far enough along in design that we can kind of break down how that is going to work for the projects. I'm looking at Miguel, and then also we've got an update on our veg project too. Just really quickly going back to the pilot project too, I don't want to get us off track with the agenda, but one other thing I should have pointed out is that when we think about what the potential for the broader North Lake, Northeast Lake of the Salton Sea is going to look like in the coming years, I just want to try to connect the dots to one of the presentations earlier from Alianza, because, you talked about the CVAG, all the great work that they're doing to build out that, I believe it's the feasibility study to connect the CV link to the Salton Sea. So that's one leg, right? And then we've also got our broader North Lake wetlands project that's a little bit behind our existing projects, but would be about 2,000 acres around the north end of the Salton Sea. Then you've got the pilot project. You've also got the Alianza Trail proposal that would connect, as I understand it, the yacht club to the Salton Sea State Rec area. So I just, that you're hearing a lot of enthusiasm from me, because taken together, all of these projects are going to be game changers for the way that we look at that region. And, we've got a heck of a lot of work to do on every single one, particularly our state projects. But, we're super excited about what the future holds for the north side, the North Shore. And also want to give a huge shout out to my colleague, Yvonne Wilhoff, who has been the project lead for much of the work from our team on the north side, including the wetlands and the pilot project. She watches all of these meetings, so I know she's watching us here. And I think continuing to work on, all of these ones, and then, stretching down to Bombay Beach as well. It's just going to look a lot different in a couple years and hopefully sooner in some ways. But I think the bigger vision is really exciting.
And Yvonne is my partner at DWR on the feasibility study, and I could think of no better partner. She is just rock solid.
Thank you. Moving on to federal reports. Lisa, I don't know if she has anything else to say, or she probably said it already.
Hey, yeah, I just wrote a comment in the comment, though I will add, I forgot. We did secure, so in the House Energy and Water Appropriations Bill, that funds reclamation as well. Their reclamations account for the Salton Sea is something called the Salton Sea Research Program or something along those lines. Several years ago, we supported and secured legislation to allow reclamation to essentially receive additional funding into that account. They secured an extra $2 million. We secured an extra $2 million into that account. So it's now a total $4 million account that Reclamation has. Again, this is just on the House side. We still are waiting for the Senate to act on their bill. But typically, well, anyway, the hope is that we kind of maintain that and have a plus up. It's an account from which Reclamation, I think has historically funded some of these, I would call them smaller but important projects at the Salton Sea. And so that's just my addition from my other report that I neglected to say earlier.
Thank you, Lisa. Appreciate it.
Sure.
And I don't think we have anybody on for the Bureau, right? No. Okay. Moving on to cruise strategies again. Nick, do you have anything else to add besides your previous report?
No additional updates, Chair. Thank you.
Thank you. Miguel Hernandez, you are up. State of California.
There we go. Okay, good afternoon, everybody. Great to see you all again. Thank you, members of the board, for allowing me the opportunity to provide this quick update. I'll keep it short and sweet since we're at time. On our active projects, our SEH project, the Species Conservation Habitat Project at the southern end of the Salton Sea. Just in case you missed it, we had a huge ceremony to begin filling the expansion pond on the east side of this project. This means that we're watering about 2,000 acres of this project footprint with water. So it's helping us move forward with our acreage goals, not just for this project, but overall for the program. I also want to share on a personal note what I've seen in the project. I was out there last week, also with some members from IID that were doing some tours. And just to see it firsthand, there's just a lot of birds making use of those ponds already. It's just, beautiful view there. Just a lot of wildlife interacting already with the ponds as expected. But also it comes with the responsibility of adapting our operations to that wildlife already making use of those ponds, meaning there's a lot of birds nesting in the area. So that's making us drive slower on our roads, just shifting things around so we don't interact or we don't cause any kind of impact to that wildlife that's already making use of this pond. So just wanted to provide that, and just by the looks of it, it's a very promising outcome for this particular project. And also we're on the move to make the expansion of the center and west pond. We'll be hearing a bit more about that in the coming months, but it is, as Joe mentioned earlier, that this project is started with a smaller footprint, and as we were able to prove concept and show that we're making progress, we're able to secure funding and just keep growing on this project. So happy to share that as an outcome for our project. But the work is ongoing, even with the hot summer that we're currently on. Even though today is pretty good, but we're still moving forward with activities out at SEH. Regarding our vetch enhancement projects, particularly at Bombay, we are currently working on putting irrigation infrastructure. We hope to begin seeding and planting sometime either late summer or early fall, so we can get some plants going on this site. We have secured a local source of water to begin watering those plants. So hopefully see some vegetation grow before the end of the year, at least some small sprouts with seedlings going out there. And also Joe alluded to a future opportunity that we're looking forward to at Bombay to report both on our vetch enhancement project, but also on our wetlands enhancement project. We haven't really firm up a date or anything like that, or the venue or anything, but we are for sure wanting to go back to that community and report back. We were there back in October last year. So we want to report back and see what the latest and greatest on both of these projects, and also hear from communities what they've been seeing. And hopefully by then we'll have some of these seeds and plants already in place for a veg project. So we'll report more on that when that comes. And speaking about outreach and future meetings, we are currently identifying the opportunities that we're planning for the remainder of this year and the first half of next year before the next water work workshop. Of course, we will continue to have community meetings to report back on our projects, but also what's next for our projects. With much work ahead, we want to keep folks on the know and be there with community to report on progress and also continue to hear from them. As well, we will be retaking the strategy on visiting city councils throughout the region. We stopped, I think it was January this year. We will be retaking that. We only have maybe 2 or 3 city councils that we haven't hit from the region, which is City of Bldg, City of El Centro, and Rancho Mirage. So we haven't been to those city councils in the past. So we are prioritizing those 3 to be the first ones before the end of the year, and then we'll probably do a second round on the rest of the city councils that we have already visited in the past years. And yeah, that concludes my report.
Thank you.
you.
Looking forward to it.
Yeah.
Yeah, let me know when you're in Bombay. I want to go.
Thank
you. All right. Moving on to Salton Sea State Recreation Area, Enrique Arroyo. Hit us with some fun facts, Enrique.
Well, thank you very much. One exciting thing that we're about to embark on in the next few months is we are starting the Salton Sea State Recreation Area General Plan. So in the next few months, we're going to be outreaching to not just our stakeholder groups, partner agencies, but also community meetings. And it's an opportunity for us to identify development, the redevelopment, and future operations of the state recreation area. Just yesterday, we met with CVAG and we learned a little bit more about the CV link, how it enters into the state park. I've previously spoken with our partner agencies about extending the trail through the state park. This general plan will help us identify the route and connection points and amenities for that effort. So we looking forward to that opportunity.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Absolutely.
It'll be important to have a restroom when I bike.
Absolutely.
So there you go.
Yes.
Amenities are important.
Yeah.
I hadn't even thought about it till you said it. Mhm. Thank you.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. Any questions? Okay. Yes, Alan on Salton Sea Action Committee. Alan, are you online?
He is not.
He is not because we're running over time. That's what we're gonna
We
do.
are.
Okay, Patrick, you're up. Executive Director.
So noticing the time, I will try to be brief. I will be brief. People always ask me what the G in my name stands for. And it actually stands for George. My father was George O'Dowd. He didn't have a middle name. He was a World War II veteran. Oh, I'm not going to get through this. He was a World War II veteran, and he went to law school on the GI Bill. I have 7 brothers and sisters, 4 older sisters, 3 younger brothers. He was a public servant. He was a man of faith. He often worked for a sack of oysters or a box of figs or a ride on a friend's shrimp boat. And there wasn't anything he wouldn't do. He beat me like a drum. You know, he was a tough guy, but he loved me. And I'm thankful for it. That's why every time I always say, put that G there for my dad. But the reason I bring it up is because the work we do is not for ourselves, it's for future generations. And a lot of this stuff is multi-generational. And today would have been my dad's 114th birthday. So that's all. I thought I could get through it, but that's all I got.
Happy birthday, George.
Happy birthday,
Thank
George.
you for Patrick and the rest of his brothers and sisters. Thank you. If there's nothing else to come before this meeting, I declare us adjourned.
Race back to the office.